game number 3. We'll see if he can carry. Let's jump into pick and ban.
I'm ready to go and see if we see a new thing, because we've been spoiled. We've seen the return of the Teemo, we've seen the AP Malphite. Crazy stuff has happened this series as well. I must admit, I got too excited about the Elise, and unfortunately Tarzan was well out-jungled by Umti in game number 2, so I imagine the Elise may be on the sidelines. What else is going to be on the sidelines here? As I hold a lie, Griffin's actually going to be on the red side again this game, so the Zoe ban, which side will that come out of, I wonder?
That's definitely the question here, but the Yasuo gets taken away. They're more concerned about that one. And Grace himself, he has played 4 games of Zoe. We'll see if he would consider picking that one up. He can definitely ban the Yasuo, pick away the Zoe. It's one way to try to shut down Chovy.
But if you're Jinner, do you just say, hey, what about LeBlanc into the Zoe and leave it open? We're going to fast find out the answer to that question. Very top-heavy has Griffin been when it comes to Chovy, and they first picked the Orianna away in spite of everything that's available. Seen as a good matchup into the Zoe, but can be a swingy matchup, just like LeBlanc versus Orianna was in game number 2. See if Griffin just go for the default, if we see something new out of Chovy.
Definitely, all eyes on him. Zoe seems like the obvious one, especially because it is Chovy. His Orianna is actually his second most played. Yasuo was 3rd at 3-0 undefeated. So the Zoe into Orianna will come through.
9-2 on the Zoe. He's been excellent on this pick. It also empowers his jungler to play pretty aggressively. A bit of a pick comp here. Whatever jungler you choose, the Sejuani seems like a very likely choice. Out with the Elise, in with the standard is Sejuani. And his link-up play with Rather in game number 1, but also Chovy in game number 2 of their last series against MVP when they played the Teemo comp. Tarzan has been really in sync with his junglers outside of game 2, where he really couldn't get much done on the Rift.
Well, you're talking about pick comp into Zoe and Sejuani together in general. You don't want to get hit by anything. Tahm Kench was taken in game number 1. They did lose it, but looks a little bit different in the mid lane with that Zoe. I like the pick of the Tahm Kench. Will they return to the Ezreal is another question to ask.
Waiting to see. Teddy has played quite a few mages, but again, we've spoken more about bot lane Orianna than the picks have really borne out, so we will wait and see. Any other team other than Hanwha Life will play that one. Jinner going to take their jungle in the first round. It's going to be returned to the Skarner this time from Umti. We see Zac picked into the Sejuani pretty frequently, has a pretty good matchup. The Skarner usually loses out unless you get a bit of snowball in the mid game, because when it comes to an objective, Skarner's always going to be in basically melee range, and the Sejuani ults him and then goes for a smite play. So turning onto the Skarner can be a big play when Skarner versus Sejuani happens. Griffin first round going to be closed out here, and it's going to be the Morgana. Could be a Viper pick, could be a Lehends pick. Lehends had the Shen taken away, but had other choices available. Goes for just his most played, if it is to be Lehends, in that Morgana.
Yep. Key thing being that they can flex it if they want to see what happens on the side of Jinner. Now, you'd more likely expect the top lane to be the counter pick for the red side, but shenanigans can happen, as we did see the last time around. Varus just not seeing any play today, gets banned all the time now.
Varus really strong against Morgana, whether it is carry Morgana or support Morgana. Can go Q Comet Max and just completely take out that health bar in non-interactive fashion against the Morgana, so probably a pretty smart coverage ban. It's just an oppressive champion in general. I think the Varus priority, after we saw KT flex it into the mid lane against Azir, is only going to get higher. And 2 very high range, very annoying poke champions in the bot lane are banned away by Griffin.
I feel like I can feel the frustration from Teddy right now. Definitely considering what he's going to play alongside that Tahm Kench. Again, the Ezreal is still available if they want to pick that one, but they decide to ban it instead. They don't want Griffin to play it.
And Ezreal already opts into Ezreal Tahm Kench, and thus a potential Teemo pick again. So the Ezreal mind games are ended, and Viper says, hello, I'm going to remind you I can play Marksman. He's jumping on the Kai'Sa.
Here we go again. And Jin Air, will this actually happen where they decide, okay, it's time for the Fountain Laser Teddy? Could certainly be the case, but a good blind pick for now. Definitely feels like the Gnar, who is currently very strong.
The blind pick top lane, as you're mentioning, and win rate-wise is certainly the right way to go. So1 is a Gnar player of history, but this season 0-2. One of the few players not be picking up multiple wins on that Gnar. Crazy was 3-0 just a couple of sets ago. Picks into Kai'Sa. Well, Draven would certainly dominate the lane. He's played it before this season, but for now, just a hover.
Yeah, it's not a troll. It definitely could be something they decide to do, especially with all the 80 carry bans we've seen. But gonna switch it up and go for the Jin instead. Kind of an interesting one. We'll see what kind of build he goes for, especially what kind of runes he picks up.
Kai'Sa's pretty short range, so getting in there with a big crit. Storm Raiders, you can go Hail of Blades also, and be able to do a lot of damage here with Storm Razor, Celerity, Jin, which Teddy has already played a couple of times. If another tank comes in, teamfighting is going to be difficult, and, well, when it comes to Sword, he usually defaults to tanks. The Cho'Gath is seen as one of those farm lanes into the Gnar early, even though Gnar can itemize well to knock him down in the mid to late game. And it's another frontliner for the Jin to potentially lose value as the game goes on.
Cho'Gath, kind of interesting. We'll see if he can get some good flash plays down. He's definitely a really big front line alongside the Sejuani, trying to shut down the Jin.
A lot of hard CC for Griffin to apply Plasma and for Kai'Sa to just hit down all those threats. But playing through teamfights, when you have to respect the ball, the Gnar, a Skarner ultimate with Flash. Not necessarily the easiest teamfights to manage if you're Viper. He's been an awesome dude for so much of the summer. Every time we see him on a marksman, a role that he says he can flex easily to because of his past, you're only as good as your last game. Let's see how Kai'Sa will do in the last game here for Viper in this series.
Yeah, I mean, we saw the Kai'Sa being picked up because games started going longer and teams kind of felt that you could just play passively, wait for the later game, and you can get all those necessary items for the Kai'Sa. Not really concerned about the Jin in the lane, but of course that was Jin Air Green Wings counter pick, so.
I think the Skarner is the bigger question mark to me into Sejuani when it was chosen. Can easily be Feast or Famine champion this game, but they got away with the block. They made the AP Malphite work. Maybe Umti's going to be King T today, and they're going to pick up a huge upset win here and actually launch themselves potentially out of relegations.
Yeah, well, he's going to have to out-jungle one of the best junglers we have here in the LCK once again. He did it once. Can he do it twice? Let's find out in game number 3 right now. Both sides coming together here for game number 3. We talked about implications for this match. It's really important for Jin Air. They want to try to avoid relegations and move ahead of MVP and take the 8th place spot. For Griffin, if they do lose and then lose further games, not even just series, they risk losing their 1st place spot. So it's all going to be decided in this best of 1.
It definitely is really important because Griffin, if they win, stay 1 series ahead of KT. If they lose, and KT win, and KT's schedule remaining on the season is quite soft. Remember that KT owns the head-to-head against Griffin because they beat them in both the 1st and 2nd round robin. So they actually need to be ahead of KT Rolster, and losing game score in a 2-1 would make them very unlikely to be ahead of KT in the short term. So a lot of hype around this game 3 here, bottom and the top, and even the playoff race is so competitive. That's why the season is very unlikely to be decided until the final day.
Nice late ward there from Nova, but he does get spotted out. They know the exact timing of that, so sometimes, even though it's a little bit later, it's better to see where it's placed in the timing so that perhaps Tarzan can do a little bit of invading and avoiding that kind of vision.
Ghost Burrow actually picked up by only Chovy this game. See if he can sneak in a Ghost Burrow at some point during the laning phase. Be very obvious at this point if she came to lane with an extra bit of ability power. You know exactly what numbers to expect from the Zoe with her items that you would know there was a Ghost Power in your jungle. Tarzan contesting both the Scuttle and the Spire on top side.
Well, looks like the first roam will come in from Chovy, so unfortunately for unless he gets the magical smite here, which is not going to happen, he has to give that one away. So already 1-0 in terms of the Scuttles going to Tarzan.
Big backup coming through from Chovy. What you want to do in a match like this, Teddy wants that fourth shot. I'm going to get it onto the Morgana. It is, notice, not the Hail of Blades on Jin. We do see Teddy mix between the two. He sees the tanks and realizes not so many auto attacks in team fights. He will drop that Hail of Blades and just go for the much more standard fleet footwork. See if it affects the item choices as well.
A lot of junglers on the blue side love to go up and steal those Krugs. It's the least likely count for the enemy to actually go for, and you can get in there relatively undetected. Try to steal that away and get slightly ahead of your jungle opponents.
And also posture for a turret dive if the minion wave is built up. Very hard to build a minion wave up against Cho'Gath. There's 3 AoE farming abilities. But let's talk about the other jungler. Tarzan waiting his moment.
They want to get Nova. Look at that early flash, though. It might not be enough as the Binding Flash comes in for Morgana. He's ticking down, and that's going to be enough. First blood goes to Lehens.
That was actually really well played by Griffin. You have to be so patient to make a play like that work. They get onto Nova, they get that binding right at the end, and that confirms the kill. Well executed. They would have rather the kill went to Viper, but they'll take it on the Morgana as well. So watch the play here and the patience from Griffin. First, Tarzan waits for a better spot. Nova flashes early, understands he's in a lot of trouble, and then guarantees the binding, does Lehens with his own flash. They could have got the explosion final hit there, but it goes down randomly to the ignite tick, so not ideal, but you'll definitely take it.
It's going to be pretty good to start off that bottom side. Even the assist does go over to Viper and Tarzan. Add a little bit of extra gold, especially experience, for them to try to get ahead down there in the bottom lane. Again, I mean, this Jin wants to get ahead and begin critting people in the face, but if you get behind and you have to try to shoot people through Cho'Gath and Sejuani, you're not going to be having a fun game.
I imagine this item timing was forced. He went for the Swifties, which is very normal, but actually has a Fairy Charm and 4 pots to try to get through the poke in the laning phase. I don't know if he'll actually build the Fairy Charm into anything, but I imagine this is just mana regen and health regen with the gold that he had.
Tarzan face checking here. Not going to amount to anything as the Orianna is out of lane. But they see where the ward is going to be cleared out by so we've seen a lot of junglers, you know, standing still and doing weird stuff in recent times. I feel like they're just learning different timings, even though it looks a little bit awkward.
We got someone in our second series. He is the god of AFKing in a brush. Usually doesn't work out for Hanwha Life, but Hanwha Life Esports versus Kingzone Dragon X, another one of these playoff implication series that we have as our second series. Not going to be delayed. This one went to game number 3. We mentioned already, but even though it's Gnar versus a tank, the Cho'Gath has so much ranged farming abilities, it's very hard to dive because he can push the wave out. And in general, the sustain actually helps him in the early game. If you build purely for lane, you can definitely dominate as the Gnar eventually when Hyper and Rage Blade and things like that are complete. But the Cho'Gath has been seen as the tank you can get away with in the Gnar matchup.
Yeah, we've seen varying levels of effectiveness in the late game from the Cho'Gath. We've seen them flash forward and 100-0 AD carries. We've seen them just be kited forever and do nothing. So, wondering what is going to be the case here up against Jin Air. Orianna and Jin going to be pretty good at kiting. The rest of them, not so much.
Good thing I think I like about the Cho'Gath is can lane against Gnar. The ideal pick at the end here, in terms of if you get away with it against the Gnar, would be Ornn for even more ways to apply Plasma. But the Q, the Rupture, applies Plasma. Sejuani has multiple ways. Morgana and the mid laner can all apply the Plasma if you're not aware of it. That ramping up damage that you see from the Kai'Sa. It needs 4 hits or any hard CC. Does provide Plasma, and then it does missing health damage on that 5th hit. So if your teammates are giving you the assist and they're setting up the dominoes for you to knock down, that's certainly a team fight that Kai'Sa is primed to pop off.
Gonna start off with that Righteous Glory up in the top side for the Cho'Gath. We've seen that a lot, especially against melee up in the top side. Guys that are, or not melee, but you know, 80 attackers up in the top side, such as the Gnar.
He's level 6 here, doesn't have ult.
Oh, but Tarzan coming in here is going to ult the Tom Kent. It is going to be perfect. The Chilling Smite onto Teddy. That is going to be a dead Teddy, but also Nova trying to get the follow-up kill on a Viper. It's not going to happen. And domination already in the bot lane.
He didn't have Ignite, so he wasn't actually able to kill the Kai'Sa. Would have been able to pick up a kill there. It's mid lane.
Chovy is going to flash away, but Umti is going on in. That's going to be the dunk there. Handed on over to Grace, so at least Jin are able to strike back.
Really important they used the ult and killed him fast because it was so deep in between two turrets. Able to get the kill. Tarzan backs away. 2-for-1 overall trade. You still take it as Griffin, but a nice moment for Umti, flashing on an inner turret at 7.5 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, Chovy kind of just greeting for that one. Of course, he didn't have vision of the Skarner in the back line, but stayed to kill the range minions.
After the Q, I think that Jin ran out of mana, and then, of course, sees Tarzan, knows in a lot of trouble. Can't ask for more perfect target than Nova, as Tarzan has red buff, can chase for the kill. They'll get Nova as well. Again, 3 kills bot lane. Viper's got none of them. Feels a little bit bad, but other than that, he'll take it as the side of Griffin. Speaking of taking it, Umti decided Chovy was going to die by hook or by crook. Went super deep to make this play happen, but to their credit, they get the kill. They would have survived one more turret shot, so overall, good execution by Jin in the mid lane.
Yeah, if Chovy had the vision there, wouldn't have gone in for the range minions, but you can't ask for too much. There's actually a pretty deep Jin control ward to deny a lot of vision on that side, so Umti also playing well around the vision that they have.
I'm not convinced Chovy's ever put the Ghost Porrow down, so I don't know what's going on there. Pretty sure it was Ghost Porrow that I saw, but I guess could have been mistaken on some of these small domination tree runes on our screens. Viper taking a lot of poke, giving up CS, trying to be respectful. Oh, takes a second Q. Teddy wishes he had death by a touch.
Yeah. Rough life for the Kai'Sa either way. Still waiting on a kill. 003 right now, very low-level special agent at least.
Can go invisible, so that's a good sign of being a secret agent, but going to be pretty conspicuous in team fights with the damage, that's for sure. So one cancels his auto by laughing a couple of times as he's trying to zone away the Cho'Gath. Righteous Glory Cho'Gath versus Gnar. Going to see plenty of this season, unless we see big nerfs to those two.
I like the way that Tarzan has set up his jungling too. You'll notice that he's not just playing the, hey, I'm going to camp my mid laner, I'm going to try to camp the Orianna kind of play anymore. Instead, he's looking for the bottom side. Even with the Tom Kents, just decides that they can set up a lot more with the Morgana there.
Umti just chasing him away though, because Orianna, in the midst of all this, is a level up, is getting turret damage. Tarzan can't stop that inner turret from going down. They could lose mid lane turret just in the 1v1 as Umti dances and says, you're not coming past me.
He's laughing at him.
Yep, because of this.
This mid lane is just very dominated at the moment by the 2v2 of Jin.
There's no better use of the time for Umti than zoning away Tarzan and helping that mid lane win harder.
Uh-oh. Lan's not the first time he's done that either.
I believe that was a laugh. No ult used by Umti. Still available. Rolling through the mid lane. Continuing to help Grace grow this lead. And there's really little Chovy can do with no assist from his jungler.
Tarzan is still here trying to fight. Umti on the right side is going to go towards the middle, but just has to assault away. That turret's getting dangerously low. Pretty awkward spot there for the side of Griffin.
Taking down these minions with the sweeper already picked up from Lahans. Umti gets the bot side scuttle. If you consider Umti, he's providing a lot of pressure around a winning lane in mid, a winning lane in bot, and Gnar is doing fine in the Cho'Gath matchup, as we'd expect, building for lane as well. Grace walking up and posturing for a dive here. The turret's already desperately low, and that's mostly because of the control and also the successful gank put down by Umti.
That's an interesting thing when you look at the mid lane situation for Griffin. I mean, the bans here were the Yasuo, especially away, and then they first picked the Orianna because they almost knew that Chovy was going to want to pick the Zoe, and they say, you're going to have to play against Orianna, and this is going to happen. And, well, I don't know what to tell you. Now you're down 1.5 thousand gold, basically.
And this is not just a reality of the matchup. This is a reality of a successful gank, accelerating the matchup, and Chovy having no jungle pressure, because literally his jungler is battle warding the enemy jungler. So this is just the game got isolated at better item timing for the Orianna. Griffin have already shown they moved away from first pick Orianna back to first pick Zoe when they have Chovy on the blue side. So they're happy enough with the matchup. It's just that Griffin got all their advantages bot side, which gives Viper a bit more breathing room and some better farm than you would have in an isolated 2v2. But they've isolated away the enemy jungler. They've never been able to translate Tarzan to the mid lane, and that's why you get a big advantage through the Orianna.
Now also laughing and having a fun time in this game so far, is thinking about the first Ocean Drake to their side. Would make things even harder, would be pretty good for Orianna and Jin especially, that kind of drink. But also with the control of the map, they just want to get the next Drake out there. Unfortunately, it is another Ocean for their side.
Stormrazor Kai'Sa, build finish for Viper. Would love to go AP so you can get even more burst damage from the setup Plasma, but you need the AD damage for the team, and the one item power spike of the Stormrazor at 75 AD means he's just a pickaxe short of evolving his Q. Probably going to be Rageblade second here, even though those builds don't complement each other in terms of amplifying the Stormrazor crit. It is two items that Kai'Sa uses very, very well. But before those items are done, how much map control is there going to be for Jin is the big problem for Griffin.
Looking for the bubble, but the outplay there from Grace. He's looking to get the solo kill, and Tarzan not going to be there in time. Finally gets there. There's the ultimate, and Chovy comes out. But the Abyssal Voyage, Tarzan trying to stop him. Chovy nowhere to go after the portal jump is going to go down. We trade it 1 for 1. A very on-the-edge fight there.
All summoners down on Chovy, just the cleanse used by Grace, so something that might be important in a future fight. Going for the stopwatch this game, not many stopwatches in our first game, only a couple in this. Was able to get the 1 for 1, but just about it, only with first rotation from that Sejuani. We'll see if Chovy finds a lane to move to. I think Viper will go back bot lane because it's a short lane for now. It's going to be tricky for Chovy to find too much this game. They'll get a Spire, they'll get a Rift Herald, but this is a much more even trade than you want in the Zoe versus Orianna matchup.
You're talking about the first rotation. Everything misses from Chovy, so looks even more awkward. And Tarzan trying to find a way over the wall actually takes longer than necessary. Ends up using Arctic Assault to get away, and well, then everybody from Jin was there.
First river control, however, Griffin now find a good news story. They're able, in a poor 2v2, to actually get the turret first. The Morgana pushing, and also the ganks from the Sejuani meant most of the work was done earlier, so now they have an outer turret down. This will not be a zero turret game like it was in game number 2. For the side of Griffin, nice moment for Jin. They're now moving their strength. Top side, Wits End Gnar, going to be a very happy lane to jungle around for the Skarner. Here comes the teleport for Teddy, and I imagine the Rift Herald soon to follow.
Rift Heralds does get picked up there. It didn't look like we got the notification.
Yeah,
I missed that one. It was kind of weird, but did get it. And again, once again, as we do see up on the top side, not going to use it because, again, long duration. Can try to use it in a different lane, perhaps the bottom lane, just like game 2.
Small adjustment on patch 8.14 towards the Zoe. Was shaving a lot of damage off the W. Paddlestar, of course, the chief offender when it comes to people being mad about Zoe, but there are a lot of team fights we saw on 8.13 where Zoe just flashed a lot of times and got more Sparkles damage, and 60 damage away means maybe it won't be a second max anymore. 60 damage reduced at level 5 for that more Sparkles. Same damage at level 1. So I'm not 100% sure if Chovy's been maxing the Trouble Bubble first. We'll wait and see. Or at least first after the Paddle Star. That does mean that team fight damage that isn't Paddle Stars is going to be less for the Zoe.
Yeah, another buff, or rather nerf, I should say, to the Zoe, and yet still she's first pick by the side of Griffin. Still trying to work out that power level for that champion. As I mentioned, just going to help Zoan zone out and use the Rift Herald down in the bottom side. Meanwhile, also pushing the mid lane. So with Kai'Sa top and Viper with no TP, kind of looks like a good map rotation there from Jin.
All it's going to get Viper is closer and closer to his second item, and then it's Griffin needing to execute or lose, it feels like, because they've given up so much of the map. Secondary charge for the Rift Herald. Gets confused, and they actually get the hit on the back quite safely there to Cho'Gath and Morgana. Kai'Sa, does she have the Rage Blade? Does she not? It's going to be something we have to keep looking back to. Doesn't have it just yet. And then from there, it's win team fights or just give up probably inhibitors for the side of Griffin as the map control is severely on the side of Jin.
Yeah, it's all on the back of that one gank you were talking about, right? This Orianna is just getting unbelievably strong. The two ganks in the bottom side from Tarzan were good, but no extra kills onto the Kai'Sa. There's a ward in here, Tarzan. You cannot cosplay Seonghwan just yet. You're going to have to back off first.
Hey, someone would have saved his sweeper, all right?
Yeah. He would have sweeped it away, taken it out there. But Tarzan gonna back, and this Orianna, once again, she's becoming super high tier, and if you can get her ahead in this fashion, it's pretty overwhelming.
Can go Banshee Veil and not really lose damage because she's been able to farm really effectively this game and has a kill and assist, so Banshee Veil will mean safety compared to all the picks CC that Griffin have already set up. Second item from Teddy amplifies a Stormrazor crit, where second item for Viper is about an extended team fight. Very easy for Teddy. If his front line doesn't die quickly to set up with the ultimate, then who knows how much value Viper will find with just the killer instinct and the flash to reposition.
Really putting all your eggs in the Viper basket here, essentially. Chovy, maybe he can trouble bubble some stuff. Zoe's always going to be strong, even though she did get behind. She's just not going to be as oppressive. Finished her own Ludens and another Fiendish Codex. You can lock people down with all that hard CC. You're going to get a paddle star to the face, regardless of where she's at in farm.
Comes an Abyssal Voyage by trying to hit this turret and maybe even dive.
Okay, 4-on-1 here. This is kind of unfair, but Sword, he's tanky. Doesn't seem like he's going to be tanky enough, though. Nice aggressive play. Trying to turn on the Orianna, though, here is Tarzan. It's a 1-on-1. Here's Viper, finally comes in. And that's that Kai'Sa coming in to actually pick up the kill, finally getting her first one.
Really decisive call from Tarzan as well. That was in a 0-for-1 scenario. Sees Grace out of position. Cleanse Flash, doesn't matter. Goes down with both the summoners. Grace not feeling like he had a way to get out from that one, and the targeted Q over the wall probably would have killed him from Viper. Still, that means Grace is down. That means it's a 1-for-1 when Jin had pulled off the really nice move and Sword had kind of just given up his flash through all of it. Let's watch the replay. Sword's flash at the end, I think, was pretty questionable here. It's a nice play from Zoan. He gets the predict on the flash early with the wallop forward. Grace, Sword tries to flash, but I think he's dead one way or the other. I love this from Tarzan, though, who, of course, had the control ward to know Grace was coming, makes a clear call, killer instinct into death onto the Orianna.
Yeah, I would say more of a misplay from Grace than anything, but Tarzan, he saw target and he is going to kill target. The mechanics were perfect to pick up the play, so gotta give him the play there. So we'll see if Grace can kind of gather everything up here and not get caught up next time.
The last part of the gathering for Viper is still on the way. He went QSS because you need it to win the team fight we're alluding to with Stormrazor and the Rage Blade. It needed to be 2.5 items with the QSS. So the QSS is done. Still probably about 1,000 gold plus away from the Rage Blade. If he can non-interactively pick that one up by side laning, which is what he desperately wants to do, then Griffin have a team fight. You can see them winning. But before that point, Jin have so much map control. They didn't take the inner turret through that play onto the Cho'Gath because the Orianna went down. So the map is a bit less long than they might have hoped for. They probably would have banked on them getting an inner turret as well. But Griffin just trying to find the gold onto Viper before they set up for a 5v5.
Nice tag there on a Chovy. They know somebody's in the bush. So Jin will play a little bit more passively there. There's not necessarily all that much deep vision in the red side of the jungle there against Griffin, so they've been doing a good job of just keeping that up for them. Again, it feels like the game has been a little bit longer than it's actually at here, only 22 minutes into the game.
Well, the easy objectives are down, and getting hard objectives. We always call the easy objectives the outer turrets because Jin had 2 games in a row. What did they do? They got a turret, then they went top lane and zoned away with 4 members, and they ripped Herald a 3rd turret. That's what they've done very cleanly 2 games in a row. It gets easier and easier to defend around these areas. Nice long walls for the Zoe and the Morgana to rain in, poke from. So while they may eventually power down this inner turret, it has taken an extra 3 or 4 minutes. They would have rather been setting up around the Baron or something like that. Look at how long those trouble bubbles are. Remember, they nerfed that many moons ago.
I played against a lot of Zoe. I've seen and casted a bunch of Zoe, but it will never not be hilarious when she's sleeping you from 3 screens away, and there's not much that you can do.
Viper also can't do too much when it comes to wave clearing next to an Orianna. Is going to have to respect the ball. When we zoom out, we don't get the same sounds on the abilities. Apparently, we still do on the trouble bubble.
Oh, they're going in. They caught Umti here. A couple of CCs are going to land. He is going to flash away, though. Perfect stopwatch was in effect for him to survive. Nice dodge there on the shockwave by Viper. Not quite going to hit it is Grace.
Has the movement speed. Supercharger gets him out just. Doesn't have to use a summoner to do so. Low on mana because he's craving that last bit of gold for his Rage Blade. Viper's got this game on his back. Hasn't had too many games like that on Marksman. That's why it's another thing we might learn about. Or when it comes to Griffin's easy schedule. You saw Griffin's schedule and said, they're a top team, they'll close it out. They don't have the runs on the board from previous seasons for us to know. Easy schedule, 3-0, no problem. So whatever happens here from Griffin, we will learn something big and factor that into their playoffs games.
Like the idea here. You know, if they can catch Umti, it's going to be fantastic, but stopwatch puts an end to all of that.
I believe in the stopwatch, he got so much value. I believe the tether from Lehens actually was also popped by the stasis, so certainly super high value on that one, and just turns it into the stone plate. They're very much going to be middle of the team fight, trying to slow and stun people in annoying fashion. We do equate Tarzan and Score many times as junglers, and one thing I'll say Tarzan has over Score is the Sejuani ultimates.
Yeah,
Score's a big fan of zoning ults.
He's got those old wrinkly hands, still desperately trying to land those ultimates. It's not quite happening. Tarzan, just a bit younger than him.
Only 7 years younger.
Yeah, that's a lot of years. That's a whole pro gaming career and a half right there.
The amount of years between Yukal and Score, Chovy and Score is just too damn many. They are 9 years apart in terms of age.
Yeah. It's a big gap. That's for sure. But still waiting for something to do here as Chovy finally hits some damage onto Teddy. So now he's not at 0.
Here's Kai'Sa. Has the Rage Blade. Now things are good for the Kai'Sa. Evolve on the Q and the E. A long team fight should be dominated by her with the hard CC we've already mentioned a couple of times since draft. Setting up for those explosions on the Plasma passive there on the Kai'Sa. Has the QSS to get out of sticky situations, and yet could die instantly to a Jin 4th shot. Many things can still happen here, but this is what Griffin had to fall back on when mid lane just went so disastrously against the Zoe, and Orianna really heralded the start of this game for Jin Air. There was 3 outer turrets at basically 20 minutes. 6 minutes later, a Rage Blade is there, the gold lead is the same. This is what Griffin were waiting for.
Sit back, you never really have to commit. If you land a bunch of CC from the Zoe or the Morgana, then you can look for a pick. But again, they're going up against a Tom Kent. When you're 5v5ing here, it's going to just be hard to really do much outside of that.
The lane ward behind them, but sort of thing that will be likely to be swept and harder to get value out of. Jin Air monopolized the Drakes in game number 2 and returning to them. While Drake the 3rd spawn. My kingdom for 3 Infernals, says Jin Air, but they'll get a Mountain as the final one.
Yeah, not the best. I mean, I suppose when you do have the Jin, you need a little bit more of that Baron damage, but he does his own crits. He's got his own built-in smite, especially as the game goes long, so gonna try to avoid that getting stunned. Speaking of which, trying to go here on a Nova. Wasn't expecting this. Teddy's gonna get really low. The immediate devour. There's the cleanse onto that trouble bubble too. Here comes Sword looking for it. He's gonna Righteous Glory in, but eats way too much damage. Questionable shockwave there, but just chipping down the Cho'Gath a little bit more.
Really needed the Morgana binding to hit to have chase. Kai'Sa wants that extended fight with the Ginsu's Rage passive built up. But Jin able to easily kite down. Ults don't register. They'll get a bit of Baron control for the play. Turn it around, try it again. That's really all Griffin can do, whereas Jin Air, their fallback is very, very powerful. Orianna dissonance to get between waves. They still feel really good walking up to turrets with the double range of Orianna and Jin. So the map control is pretty fleeting. Griffin will back off and get some CS, but other than that, no big pickups for Griffin.
Griffin can't catch anyone. Jin Air don't get a kill on their side, and the game continues to stall here at 28 minutes. The gold lead is actually pretty nice compared to some other games that we've seen go this long. It's about 3.5 ahead, 3.5 thousand, I should say, for Jin Air. So really going to be waiting on those big shockwaves into the back line, but you consider, right, the Cho'Gath and the Sejuani, they're not going to take too much damage for that. The Kai'Sa's going to be slippery. You really need the rest of your team to also follow up on your shockwaves and not just hit only one member like Grace has been doing.
Usually you look at a comp like this and say, okay, but you can only shockwave the front line, what's it going to do? But while Viper is slippery, he's so much of the damage and burden on the side of Griffin, the game was delayed just to get him teamfight ready. Respecting the Flash Skarner ultimate, the ball, everything in a teamfight, it's very visually noisy. It's very real that Viper maximizes damage at the wrong spot and dies to this 3-item spike from Grace. He'll take most of his health bar with just a QSS for defense. That's why he's actually going for the stopwatch here. Just try to hope to live. It's going to be all about execution, Valdez.
They're looking for Sword. He does have his flash. Thinking about it, but now looking for the counter engage here. But Tarzan is going to be pulled on in. The binding will land here. Sword is getting relatively low. Got to be careful about that. One more crit would do it. Trying to snipe him down. Finally, the curtains are open for the first time this game, I believe. And the Cho'Gath, either way, is going to survive on the back end.
Shockwave, I guess, just accidentally used.
Oh boy.
Might have seen something there that wasn't happening, but oops, says Grace. Level 16, blue buff, gonna have pretty low cooldown. Not the shockwave he was looking for.
You know, Lahens was there 5 seconds previously.
I realized that.
Looking for a play here on a Tarzan, not gonna happen. Griffin, much like KT, I feel like they're one of the better teams at just stalling out and waiting. And especially around the Baron, I should say, when mentioning KT.
Here comes So-Won.
Yeah, he does
this
have
could
that
be huge.
Meganar. He's going to get stunned up, but 2 members get dunked into the team. Lahens is going to go down, and he actually survives on the backside. So-Won with barely any health finally goes down to the Zoe somehow, some way. A relatively even fight, but Grace coming in here will have the next shockwave. It's up again, by the way. Flash here. Sword is going to flash in a straight line. Nearly goes down on the backside, but oh boy. Very, very close are these fights now.
It's so tense. Everything held on to Grace. Flash ults. Didn't use the shockwave earlier like you might have imagined to kill Sword earlier into the fight. Viper knows that he is very much the VIP from the side of Griffin. Maybe even the VVIP after Chovy. Such a slow start. We're going to watch the replay here. I saw a 4-man ult next to a wall, Flame-esque from the LPL years past. Doesn't get quite that. Nice repositioning from Griffin. They can fight front to back really well if they can just focus on one target. They can't, and Grace says, I am going to be the one to stop Viper maximizing his damage.
Yeah, trades flash for flash here with Viper.
You'll take that. While Orianna can be caught easier now, if they catch Viper, they maybe win the game. Just because you can walk up with Orianna and Jin and take down some turrets. Phantom Dancer finished for Viper, so not the rapid fire cannon that we saw Deft building on his Kai'Sa. Knows that everyone is on his tail. Can Viper hard carry like he could in Challenger earlier in the season when he's playing the Awesome Dudes? That was a weird pause. When he was playing the Awesome Dudes, people said the meta will change and Griffin will be exposed. I said, well, Viper in Challenger was the hard carry marksman. Those days mean very little today when they're 3 series away from closing out the regular season title. I want to see Viper perform in a game where he is the MVP for the side of Griffin.
We've been talking about the Griffin 80 carry, but how about nearly 10,000 damage for Teddy in the last fight? Okay, this Jin is also beginning to get really strong. Looking for a counter engage here onto Umti, but Tarzan gonna make it super low. Finally, they get that big shockwave they were looking for. Nova is gonna get low, and Teddy nearly goes down as well. Nova should be going down here. Someone on the right side. Finally, Toby able to get it. But what is gonna be the cost? They may have to give their life for this. But the crit in the face of the Togoth, what the hell? Jin Air, have they done it? They are so close. If they pick off Viper here, it would be fantastic. They may be able to push it to win the game. There they get the dissonance, and Viper is just gonna stopwatch to gain some time. But finally he's gonna go down, and Jin Air are gonna push in.
Jin Air comes from all the flanks, they get the kills. They probably can't end the game because Tarzan is up in 10 seconds. And from there, it's some staggered death timers. They're gonna turn on to the Baron, but big victory for Jin Air. Griffin just couldn't get their team fight set up. Viper couldn't auto for the majority of the fight. Too much to respect, like we mentioned, Valdez, with things like the ball and all the other harassment that came down. Teddy easily outranged the Kai'Sa in the fight. Someone pushes up mid, and it's Baron to Jin Air.
Huge fight for them. It's not just 3,000 gold anymore. It's just about 9,000. Huge items are going to come through here as well for Jin Air. Let's watch this fight again.
We're gonna watch the replay here. Remember, Griffin need fights where Viper can free hit. He opens up, a flash comes in, Tarzan dies instantly, and then count how many autos you see from Viper. He needs to be doing the damage because Chovy, of course, is on an artillery mage and was denied from a poor laning phase. Doesn't get any autos onto anything other than a turret into a ward. He's trying to build up the Ginsu's Rage passive on the ward. But how many of his allies are alive when he's finally auto-attacking against that Ginsu Rage passive? The answer is a Morgana, who's going back into base.
Uses the stopwatch just to buy time. And, well, I don't think that's worth it. I would have rather saved that for the next fight, but you delay 3-4 seconds. Not the worst thing in the world. Maybe thought that Jin Air could actually end the game. But now with Baron, they're going to be looking to end this one. 4 damage from Tarzan. I don't even know how that's possible. Must be his Cinder Hulk tick onto a tank is what I would expect. Because Tarzan in that fight, he tried to ult. I think it was actually his ultimate damage that got that amount.
That would definitely be more than 4. Maybe it was on a shield?
Should be more than 4. Probably mostly on a shield, and then he died.
Very strange as we're seeing some big damage out of the Jin as well. Watching the bot side, chasing onto Sohwan, they'll kill him fast.
Yeah, that's going to be the end of Sohwan's life, so not respecting the CC of Cho'Gath and Sejuani, he gets caught on the right side, and that means that only the mid inhibitor is going to go down for now. So
the evolving status of the top 5 right now is to be decided because we see Kingzone and some of the top 5 teams play. What this means for relegations is very interesting. If Jin Air win, they're actually a best-of-1 tiebreaker away from being out of the relegations. There'll be exact game score and match score as MVP. If they just follow and the teams lose 2-0, win 2-0, if they don't have a different game score by the end, it'd be a tiebreaker to avoid relegations between the two.
We saw it happen the last time Teddy was able to open up like this, critting Cho'Gath in the face for 776. And, well, does a little bit of damage. Was hyping it up there, didn't really do what I expected. As he was just clearing the wave, and they just want to get this outer turret, not much more.
Still, Griffin will say, maybe there's a better moment for us. It's all they could do after Zoe was slammed in the laning phase. Hippo turret goes down, still 40 seconds. There's still quite a lot of Baron time here when they're already pushed up. Jin Air seem to be first thought to move back, to move any flank wards. The flank is not the scariest. Cho'Gath will kind of lumber in and maybe silence someone, but probably no more than that. Tarzan wants to ult someone who's not next to the Orianna and then just have the Kai'Sa fly in and kill that front person. They have a lot of damage to do that, but with the group being so extensive in this game, seems pretty unlikely to happen.
And that's not a good news story for Griffin. You were talking about Jin Air and the relegations, but Griffin, they want to make it to the finals, have a lot of time to build up and study, and not have to face whoever's going to be up in third place in a best of 5. But this might be the series that gets them down and actually puts KT ahead. I wouldn't get excited just yet, guys, but it's definitely looking like Jin Air's in a big lead so far.
Well, I'm not going to say the E word. I just want to see Jin Air close this one out. They've played so well. They're in a wonderful spot, and yet Griffin could win this game at the drop of a hat.
Curtain call going to come in here, and the Cho'Gath was actually up on the top side because, just things. He wanted to try to go for the 5v4 up in here, but he actually, Tarzan takes a ton of damage in the front line just to the Jin.
And that was great timing, though, from Teddy, because as the Gnar last hit that turret, they now have 2 exposed inhibitors, 1 downed inhibitor. And this third one is not going to take too many shots from Teddy. It's 764 AD.
Yeah, they're going to have to all in eventually if they're not going to defend this bottom side. Sword being told to come up here, and even without minions, Teddy just walks in and takes the turret away.
When do you make the big play? When do you try something that if you get it wrong, the game ends? Is the question mark going through the heads of Lahens and also Tarzan right now. Sword doesn't really have that sort of agency. Chovy would need to hit a very fortunate bubble. The items are now there. 6 items, Fountain Laser territory for Teddy. Been a while since we've been able to shout about that. Viper working towards his 4th item. See if it will be the Mercurial Scimitar. Would love an Infinity Edge and a Scimitar, but can only do so much when you're 10,000 gold behind Jin Air in what is now a must-win Game 3.
Teddy has a lot of supporting items too. The Knight's Vow is going to help him out against any damage in the front line. He has a Tom Kent behind him, and he's not the only damage threat. But take a look at Viper. He's just being zoned out by only Teddy. What is going on? Nobody can even get near him. The flash comes out. Sword is 1v2ing, but Teddy himself is winning the fight on the other side. 1v4ing up in the mid lane.
They're so out of position here, Griffin, because Sword was on a ward. His flank was just wasted from the start, and here's the emergency engage. I don't know if it's enough.
It's not going to be enough. Tarzan is going to be locked down, and here comes Teddy, the evil demon fountain laser, moving in, wants to get the penta if he can. He's going in, going to get the double here, looking to get the quadras. Viper and Chovy, the only 2 that are left over, just trying to delay this game.
This game should end, though. Jin Air comes in mid lane. They've upset Griffin.
That they have. Umti and Nova just going to stop the backs. It's not their job to win the game. Trying to stop the TP. Doesn't look like it's going to matter. It's going to be interrupted anyway. And there you have it, guys. Jin Air gets the 2-1.
No, wait. Inhibitor.
Oh, man, they don't just yet. Trying to deny this. Hold the phone, guys. The inhibitor is going to go down. And it looks like now they're going to be able to take the 2-1 victory.
Congratulations to Jin Air Greenwings. Huge cheers from the Jin Air fans. This means they are level with MVP when it comes to that relegation battle. For the side of Griffin, it looked like that easy 2-0. Surely they beat Jin Air, but because they've never had to be clutch in the stretch, every sports fan knows that analogy of needing to win in the business end of the season. They lose a very winnable series against Jin Air Greenwings, and suddenly it's just as tight at the top as it is at the bottom, as it is for top 5. There's no breathing room anywhere in the standings.
We all make jokes about getting excited for KT, but I think you said the best here for Griffin, right? They don't have the experience to roll with the top of the tide right now because it's so hard. There's so much pressure on them, and now they're 3-4 to nearly end round number 2 when they were 8-1 in round number 1. This team kind of falling apart at the hinges. First it was Afrika, KT, and then Genji, and we're like, okay, that's acceptable, it's excusable, those are really good teams, it's very competitive. But now Jin Air played really well, but I think Griffin should be able to take these wins.
And now Griffin will have their toughest match of the season. And it's not just because it's SK Telecom in very good form, it's also Griffin who are going to have all sorts of memes and all sorts of negative stuff sent their way. You lost to Jin Air, what a disgrace. You also played the Teemo and won with it. You didn't win with your other strategies. Are you just a one-note Teemo team? We know, and they should know, that those things are, of course, less than half the truth. But will they know that in just a few days in a must-win series against SK Telecom T1? Young players, so many players at 17, and rookies when it comes to the LCK stage. There's no way to know, Valdez. That match is going to be so interesting and illuminating in a few days' time. But such a big win for Jin Air. Grace and weren't even starting this series, and then they come in and they get the 2 wins in a row. Everything to be decided in the LCK. Every match a must-watch.
Well, Jin Air, a very well-deserved win because Griffin not showing up, Jin Air showing up in a gigantic way, and CV Max has given them the lecture. Everybody knows this feel after a big loss when you're being lectured in the booth. Jovi looking really down on himself. You know, he gets solo killed here early on in the game, and then he's basically a non-factor for the rest of it.
They shut down Chovy, like you mentioned, in trade for the Kai'Sa doing better than expected in lane. But by the end, it didn't matter. The Jin was able to set up from range. Griffin couldn't set up the team fights they're so well known for in the late game. The range really counting against them. And Jin Air really well-deserving victory on the series. I think Griffin were very fancy in their draft in game 2, but they've done that many times this season and been punished for it. The double Lucian Braum funnel that didn't work against Afrika Freaks. The no damage comp in the first round robin, where they didn't have any access to Genji's backline and could do nothing. Their drafts have been a little bit up and down, and you look at the Teemo and say it's 2-0. You look at the series and say they lost 2-1 to Jin Air. Jin Air may have beaten Kingzone in the first round robin, but that was a long time ago, Valdez. They clearly didn't have faith in their starters in this one, opening up with Justice and Kakao. Their starters come back in. They looked hungry. Their fundamentals were good. The vision control to catch Sword at the pixel brush just to the right of where the Kai'Sa died was so important. He was looking for a flank on a freshly put Jin Air ward, and Sword's whole health bar was for nothing.
Not much he can do 1v2, and you mentioned it before, this is the game of Doublelift's wet dreams right here. This Jin was just unbelievable in the majority of this game. Once he got fed, we had to stop talking about Kai'Sa because it didn't look like she mattered anymore. It was all about the Jin, not even more so than the Orianna at that point as the game went along. Teddy popping off in a big way. He totally deserves the MVP here. I think had a good game too. But, man, just a team effort for Jin Air to take down #1 team in Korea.
I think that's the important takeaway is, yes, Teddy had a great game in game number 2, but Teddy wasn't the match winner over this series. It was very much great performance from Grace, 2 games in a row. This time not with a big counter pick. It is a good matchup into Zoe, but it was a first pick Orianna rather than his late pick LeBlanc or Renekton that's picking MVPs up on before. had a great series as well. There wasn't those brain fades or mistakes that he was making so freely in his last 3 or 4 series. In general, Jin Air's comp did what it said on the tin. They kept range. They never let the Kai'Sa pop off in a fight. This was controlled from Jin Air. They almost denied any turrets or Drakes 2 games in a row against Griffin, our first place team.
I guess that's the Jin Air effect. We talked about different teams trying to upset and being the upsetters as we get later on in this this round number 2, but they did it before in spring. They've done it again here. Now, it's not going to be the upset to knock out Griffin out of playoffs, but it certainly could take them down a few rungs.
They are not officially locked for playoffs. If they had won today, they would have been in playoffs. They still have to show something. Teddy wants to hear you shout. He says to the fans at the Nexon Arena, 7-1-2. Great performance on the Jin. Didn't go for the Halo Blades. Knew he had to keep his range. Keep his range, he did.
So guys, we're going to be hearing from the 2 Jin Air players tonight. I'm going to hand it over to Ji-sun to help out with the translation.
Thank you very much. This is Ji-sun with their interview translations, and today we're going to be having an interview with Grace and Teddy from Jin Air Green Wings. Congratulations on the win. Are you guys happy enough? You guys seem a little bit calm. How do you guys feel? It's really relieving that we won. Yeah, it's really relieving. The Grace and Teddy. It could have been the toughest match of the split in such an important moment for Jin and Green Wings.
들어요. 어떠신가요?
What does today's victory mean to you guys?
되게 미드가 너무 잘해준 것 같아서
I think Grace in mid lane did so well. I feel really happy. I think I got carried.
세트 정말 그레이스 선수가 보여준 게 너무너무 많았기 때문에
Yeah, I think Grace kind of pulled all of the super plays on his own plays.
3세트 그냥 오리아나가 리시아
Well, speaking of game 3, I think it was all Oriana. I was just lucky to steal all the kills.
커트콜 너무 멋지지 않았어요?
네, 정말 지네어의 미드 정글이 완전 각성한 게 아닌가.
네.
I think seriously,
어떤 일이 있었는지
Grace and their synergy was so great.
모르겠어요. 원래
Well, I don't really know.
좋을 때는
When we were performing well,
모습 나오는데
we used to show some good plays, but sometimes, you know,
상실증 걸린
we
것 같이
get lost of our memories and we kind of get lost during the game. So you're just trying to figure out.
그 자람을 찾았다 이 경기에서.
I think you guys finally found the answer.
든든한 이름을 느끼고
And also, Teddy would be so happy to be carried throughout the games, right?
만나는 거라서 많은 팬분들이 정말 마음을 많이 졸이셨을 것
You know, a
같아요.
lot of fans were also worried about you facing Griffin today. So what was the main factors that you guys focused on preparing for today's series?
평소에 하던 것처럼
Well, as usual, let's just get rid of our mistakes and let's not get ganked in bot lane. But we kind of couldn't pull that off in game 3, so I was a little bit sad.
회복이 됐겠네요. 그레이스 선수랑 이제 엄티 선수 같은 경우에는 아무래도 1세트에서
Well, speaking of Grace and you guys must have watched the game first in the waiting room, right? So what kind of feedback went back and forth in the waiting room?
1차 타워 다 나가고
Well, when all of our first turret were out, I thought we were still able to win.
할만하겠다 그런.
Well, if we pull that off to the late games, I thought Jin could have won the whole series, but yeah, it was a little bit sad.
그 장면들이 이제 2세트에서 완벽하게 좀 나왔던 것
However,
같아요.
you guys made a perfect recovery in game 2. So, was there any specific advice from the coaching staff for game 2?
그냥 별말 없으셨고 그냥 열심히
Well, nothing
하라고,
special.
떨지 말라고.
Well, they just told me to not to be shaky and don't be too afraid of the games.
힘이 됐을 것 같다는 생각이 듭니다. 이제 경기 얘기를 좀 해봐야 될 것 같아요.
speaking of games,
미드에서부터 진짜 그 힘이 굉장히
well,
단단했던 게 느껴졌고 바로
I think there were a lot of gank attempts on mid lane, and also you guys stole the Baron, right?
르블랑 트런드를 가져온 만큼 사실 미드 정글 주도권 싸움이 굉장히 치열했잖아요.
So I think there were a lot of fights in the early and mid games with LeBlanc and Trundle. And you know, thanks to a lot of ganks, I think you are really able to play the mid lane in a lot of priority, right?
되면 이제 한데 어떤
Then maybe we can go through the clips and
네네.
그냥 계속 갱각 서로 볼 수 있는 거 서로.
I think we were just trying to make as many as ganks we were able to do.
빼자 하고 설계하고
The first one was to take down the Oriana's flash.
트런들이 갱 압박이 세가지고.
You know, Trundle is really powerful making ganks, so yeah, I think we were glad to able to pull that off.
기가 막혔어요 그레이스 선수. 아 제가 집 설마 미나 했는데 밀더라고. 그래서 이거.
Well, I saw her pushing lane, so I was thinking of recalling, but I actually canceled it and made a kill with
그리고
Trundle.
이제 바론 스틸 당시에 사실 이제 르블랑이 잡아낼 거라고는
Well,
아무도 생각하지 못했을
And
것
speaking of
같은데
the Baron, you know,
이제 잡긴 잡으셨는데
well, LeBlanc was the one who stole it.
브라운의 강타가
You know, actually,
어떤
Brown was the one who used
네,
his smite, right?
애초에 먹히는 건데 이거.
At first, I thought that it was Griffin's Baron,
르블랑이 강타보다 데미지가 좀 셀.
but LeBlanc's burst damage would be more powerful than the smite, so I was just, yeah, maybe I can give it a try, but we were lucky.
네, 설계 자체는 실수였어요.
But, well, I have to say that was a mistake.
원래 발언 신경을 안 썼어요.
We weren't really planning to take down the Baron.
도와주고 상대 쳤는데.
At first, we shouldn't just let them try Baron, but it was our mistake, but we were really lucky to pick that out.
장면들이 있었는데 장민철 해설이 좀 이야기 나눠볼까요?
네, 2세트에서는 뭐 사실 저게 가장 큰
So
장면이기
that
때문에.
could have been the best highlight from game 2, and moving on to game 3.
오리아나를 가지고 조이를 계속 압박을 해주면서.
I think you did put a lot of pressure as Oriana against Zoe.
초반은 어떻게 그런 장면이 좀 나왔는지.
So how did you play in the laning phase? Is there any tips?
자신감으로 오리아나를 보고 조이를 뽑았거든요.
You know, you kind of blind picked Oriana, right?
정글이랑 좀 같이.
I think Oriana is a really strong champion in laning phase, so I just want to replay what I did in the game 2, but it was Sejuani, and I had clans with me, so I was really feeling comfortable.
계속해서 이제 초반부터 좀 분위기를 많이 가져가는가 싶었는데 약간씩의 실수가
However,
것 같아요.
the game was a little bit close in game 3, right?
알수
So-
없는 이런 좀 경기가 펼쳐졌죠.
그리고 이제 또 3세트 MVP인 테디 선수.
And I have a question for you, the MVP of game 3.
룬도 김인환 발놀림을 선택을 하고.
So today's Rune, and you also went to the Swift Boots.
나온 이후부터는 걸어다니는 게
So
아니라
as soon as you got your first core item, you were like running in the rift, not walking. And you also had Tomkins in your back, and also Orianna to give you shields.
농락하는 그런 모습을 보여줬는데 그때 플레이 소감이 좀
So
어떠셨나요?
how was game 3 as Jin?
오리아나 쉴드 받고 가면 그냥 다 이기겠다 하면서 그냥
Well,
아무나
I
그랬던
thought
것
that I
같아요.
would win every player if I get shields from Orianna. I was really confident.
오른쪽 앞에서 상대 타잔 선수를 잡아내면서 순간적으로 좀 위험한 장면이 있었는데
And there was
장면이 준비가 되면은
A teamfight near Baron, so let's go through a clip.
네.
네.
기다리는 거예요?
네. 나왔죠.
알겠습니다.
이거 설명 좀 해주세요, 테디 선수.
So what was the situation over there?
따고 빠질라 했는데
Well, I was just take down Sejuani.
약간 늦게 먹어지더라고요. 그 초가스가
But-
침묵 걸어가지고 상계치한테.
You know, the silence from Cho'Gath kind of close to take me down, but it was really lucky for me to survive.
마지막 네 번째.
아, 셌어요.
That damage was so huge.
이때 이제 좀 승리 예감을 하셨겠어요? 어떠셨어요?
Did you feel like you guys can close out the game?
탔다고 바로 먹고 그냥 미드 가면 미드 뭉치면 그냥 끝나겠다.
Yeah, if we just push through mid lane, we knew that we were gonna take down the Nexus.
근데 나르가 잘리긴 했는데.
네.
Well, Narg actually got cut out, but we won anyway, so it's okay.
막 올라가잖아요. 그거 약간 있어요? 신경이 쓰이세요?
So do you care about the Walking Nexus nickname? No, not really.
좋습니다. 자, 이제 오늘따라 정말 날이 섰던 플레이를 또 선보였던 것 같은데 저는 궁금했던 게
My
오늘은
question is
진짜
that-
이 정도는 하고 간다 이런 목표 의식이 있었는지
What was the biggest motivation or goal for today's series?
어떤 뭐가 있었나요? 이거는 진짜
You know,
놓치지
Griffin
말자.
is
이거는
such a
가져가자.
tough
이런 거
opponent, to be
있었어요.
honest.
그 경기하기 전에 전날에
Before games, yesterday,
연습 끝나고
after our practice games, You know, Griffin is so good cover plays, so
합류만은 잘하자라는
we're just trying to catch up with their speed of covers.
잘 뭉쳤던 것 같나요?
그냥 잘
I think and we did pull that off quite well today.
아, 네, 좋습니다.
정말 좋았죠. 뭐 먼저 합류를 더 하면서 탐켄치 활용해서.
I think you guys were
굉장히 좋은
faster
플레이였고,
than Griffin, actually.
MVP를 턱 끝까지 쫓아왔습니다. 지금
So you guys are so close with
지옥 같은
MVP
순간 좀 벗어날 수 있거든요.
and so close to getting out of the relegations.
테디 선수 어떠신가요?
So how do you guys feel?
가기 싫긴 해요.
I never want to go back to relegation again.
삭발할 수도 있을 것 같아가지고.
Well, if I go there again, I might have to shave my hair.
아 지금까지 싸질러 놓은 똥이 너무 많아.
Well, I've been trolling too much throughout the
치우는데
splits,
열심히 해야 될 것 같아.
so I'm gonna focus to carry all the games left.
좋습니다. 그렇습니다. 자, 이제 그레이스 선수가 또 중요한 또
And Grace,
분이 오셨잖아요.
you know,
할머님과 어머님께서
today your
또
grandmother and mother
오늘
are here to support
해주셨거든요.
you.
정말 신기한 게 저번에도 말씀하셨는데 어머님이 오시면
And you know,
이건 진짜
whenever your mother comes to the arena to support you, Jiner always picks a victory.
감사하고.
Thank you, mother. I love you.
또 와주세요.
And come see me again. Thank you.
네, 어머니 다음부터 계속 오셔야 될 것 같아요, 정말 아무래도.
I guess.
자, 이제 많은 팬분들께서
Grace mother should always
오셨습니다.
come to the arena to support Jiner, right?
네.
Thank you so much for your cheers and support.
이제 테디 선수는 앞으로 남은 경기들이 또 있잖아요. 정말
And Teddy,
진짜 피해야 돼요. 이제 절실함만
You guys are so desperate to get out of the relegation. So is there any last words for your fans?
한 말씀 부탁드리겠습니다.
저희 더 열심히 준비해서
We're gonna do our best.
강팀들
We're gonna practice harder to take down all the stronger teams in LCK.
부탁드립니다. 정말 오늘 힘겨운 승부 속에서 살아남았습니다. 놀라운 경기력으로
So today, Jiner, it could have been the biggest upset, took down Griffin into 2-2 victories, and I will pass it back to our casters. Thank you.
Well, it definitely feels like the grandma buff is real. Every
Yeah.
time his grandma comes down, they seem to win. And it's against really good teams, too. They go up against Griffin, and they upset them in upsetting fashion, I would say, for the Griffin fans, too. This is not the dominant Griffin they were expecting.
No one could have seen this particular result coming, and it means so much at both ends of the table. Jin Air is now basically the same as MVP. There's actually going to be a best of one if they have identical results from here. So game score will have to influence that one. At the top though, if KT Roster win by any margin, they will be first because they own the head-to-head against their opponents. They do not play again. Amusingly, they play on Thursday against Jin Air Green Wings themselves. Jin Air could actually ruin so many dreams. The Jin Air crushing of the dreams, the Jin Air being the Robin Hood. We never talked about the Jin Air Robin Hood this season because they just lost, but Jin Air was famous over the course of the LCK from robbing from the rich and giving to the poor. They've just robbed from the rich. Griffin suddenly find themselves susceptible to finishing to second, to third, maybe even further.
Yeah, I mean, they rob from the rich, Griffin, and they give to themselves, essentially. Not really Robin Hood, but again, you saw what Teddy said, too. He's like, I might have to shave my head if we make it into relegations. They do not want to be there. It's really sad when you're in relegations and you never know. I mean, who's the next team to come out of Challenger and replace one of these bottom teams? Could it be Damwon Gaming? We never really know.
I've watched enough of their games to know they are a strong team. I don't think they're Griffin just yet, but they have stars as well. So the relegation tournament going to be super competitive. Today's second series going to be super competitive. Of course, we're a little bit after 8 p.m. Korean Standard Time already, so going to be about a 20-minute break when we get to it. Rolling into Kingzone versus Hanwha Life. Currently, both of them are top 5 teams. Hanwha Life, they're definitely on the weaker side. That 8-match win score, if you're an SKT fan, you're a Kingzone fan today, anything that gets the teams at 8-match wins, a loss is good news for SKT.
And they should be feeling good, too, because Kingzone is on a roll themselves, just like SKT. So, guys, we're going to be back after about 20 minutes, so join us in just a few for Kingzone versus Hanwha Life. Until then, see you soon.